To all the regulars and new viewers, welcome. My name is Alex, and you are on the Classic Cars Roast channel. This car is a monument to questionable decisions. It's like Cadillac thought, how can we make a boat that's even less appealing? So here we are staring at the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado, a car that's a paradox of luxury and ludicrousness, all wrapped up in one massive chrome package. Now let's dive into the market situation, pricing, availability, and my first impressions of this rolling relic. First off, the Eldorado is a classic example of the big iron phenomenon heating up right now. You'd think with all its faults this car wouldn't attract much attention, but you'd be dead wrong. Well-maintained original models are fetching anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 depending on condition and provenance. And if you think that's outrageous, brace yourself. Restored models can go for much more, even reaching up to $140,000 at auction. Why? Because it's a Cadillac, and people are paying for the history, nostalgia, and that brutal charm we can't seem to let go of. Now, let's talk about availability. You won't find these beauties just sitting on every corner. The truth is, they're becoming rarer by the day. With hardly any good examples left that haven't succumbed to rust, you're more likely to discover a unicorn than a clean Eldorado. The common rust spots, like wheel arches and trunk floors, are practically the car's calling card. But if you do stumble upon one with low mileage, say around 3,900 miles, you might just want to bring a trailer and a truckload of cash. Taking a first look at this car, it's hard not to be struck by the sheer size of it. The massive chrome bumpers scream, "Look at me," while the long front overhang makes it look like it's perpetually ready to take a nosedive. The interior, with its wood-grain dash insert and optional leather upholstery, tries to whisper luxury, but it's marred by electrical issues that could leave you stranded with a malfunctioning power window. And let's not even get started on that complex front-wheel drive system, which is like an invitation for trouble. In conclusion, the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado is a mixed bag that's as heavy as it is flawed. It stands proudly as a symbol of an era that was just about to slip into the malaise of mediocrity. So what do you think? Is this a classic worth the price tag, or just an overpriced piece of nostalgia? All right, folks, gather round because we're diving into the wild world of the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado, a car that's as much a statement piece as it is a rolling monument to the malaise era. This beast emerged from the ashes of the swinging 60s, a time when American cars were still flexing their muscles, boasting high-compression V8s and unabashed power. But by 1970, we were starting to see the first signs of a downward spiral. The Eldorado? It was the last great hurrah before the automotive world began to lose its way. Picture this. Cadillac was at the pinnacle of luxury and style, and they knew how to make an entrance. The Eldorado, with its front-wheel drive design, was unique for its class, a bold move that screamed innovation. But let's not kid ourselves. It was also a desperate attempt to modernize in an era that was about to get pretty dreary. With a massive 500 cubic inch displacement engine, it boasted a roaring 400 gross horsepower, numbers that were truly impressive for the time. But remember that the net horsepower was estimated around 350. Talk about a drop. And don't get me started on that torque. 550 pound-feet. That's the kind of muscle that makes you feel alive. But here's the kicker, the transmission. The Turbo Hydromatic 400 is the best automatic transmission ever built, bar none. You put that bad boy in any car, and it's like giving it a shot of adrenaline. The Eldorado's TH400 derivative, it's solid, but it's just not the same. And while we're at it, the handling? It used to be better. Cars from the mid-60s to early 70s had a charm and stability that this model just doesn't capture. Now let's talk about the exterior. The design is a mix of elegance and absurdity. Those massive chrome bumpers, they're a nod to the luxury of the time, but they also add a fair bit of weight. And that rectangular grille? It's a statement, all right, but it also screams, "Look at me! I'm a classic, but I'm also a little confused about my identity." Inside, the dashboard layout is a blend of wood grain and practicality, but the common rust spots, wheel arches, trunk floors, lower door panels, are enough to send shivers down your spine. Rust is the enemy, my friends. And don't get me started on the electrical issues. Problematic wiring in the power window circuits and headlight systems is just embarrassing for a car of this stature. In the grand scheme, the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado is a fascinating snapshot of a moment in automotive history, a time when performance was still king, but the wheels were starting to come off the American dream. Are you ready to embrace this heavy iron with all its quirks? Because it's only original once, and that's something to consider before you take the plunge. Look at this oversized hunk of metal, the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado. The exterior? Well, where do I even start? The color palette is a throwback to the days of excess, with names like Adriatic Turquoise and Coronado Gold that sound more like cocktails than car colors. I mean, honestly, who thought that Bimini Beige was a good idea? It's like they took the worst shades from a paint store and just rolled with it. And let's not even talk about how these colors age. A classic car should evoke nostalgia, not leave you wondering if it's been sitting in a sun-soaked parking lot for too long. Now, the body lines. Remember when cars had character? The Eldorado has about as much character as a cardboard cutout. The long front overhang is awkward and makes the car look like it's constantly trying to strike a pose that just doesn't work. Sure, it's distinctive, but not in a good way. It's like they took the more is more philosophy and ran it into the ground, creating a silhouette that's more bloated than beautiful. And then we have the grille. Oh boy, the grille. 1970 brought a new rectangular design with more vertical bars which screams, "Look at me," but not in a way that's remotely appealing. It's like a bad fashion statement that just won't die. The sheer mass of chrome on the bumpers. It's excessive to the point of ridiculousness. Massive chrome bumpers that could double as a defensive barrier. Sure, it's a hallmark of luxury from that era, but it also feels like a desperate attempt to distract from the fact that the rest of the design is lacking. The build quality? Pretty dreadful. You can practically hear the rust forming in the wheel arches and lower door panels. And those comically thick door seals? They're there to hide the fact that the panel gaps look like they were measured with a yardstick. It's embarrassing. You expect a Cadillac to ooze elegance, but this thing? It's more like it's trying to hide its flaws behind a gaudy exterior. So, what do you think? Is this a design that stands the test of time, or is it just a relic of a bygone era? For me, I can't help but feel that this car is a victim of its own ambition. If I'm going to spend my hard-earned cash on a classic, I want something that not only looks good, but also leaves me feeling good about it. And this? It's a hard pass. All right, buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into the interior of this beast, the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado. Now, when you step inside this rolling monument to luxury, you're hit with that unmistakable aroma of old leather and questionable vinyl. Is it delightful? Sure, if you're into that vintage smell that whispers of a time when cars were built for comfort rather than fuel efficiency. If that scent doesn't get your heart racing, then maybe you're in the wrong place. Now, let's talk about the dashboard. The layout is a classic homage to the era, showcasing a horizontal speedometer that looks like it's been ripped straight from a spaceship. The perforated climate control panel screams sophistication, but let's be honest. Good luck figuring out how to use it without a manual the size of a small novel. And that wood grain dash insert? It's a nice touch, but come on. It's basically a veneer pretending to be something it's not. It's all about the aesthetic, but don't expect any real luxury here. It's more of a look-at-me facade. Comfort? Oh, you bet. The standard bench seats are wide enough to host a small gathering, and if you opt for the leather upholstery, you'll be lounging in style. Power-adjustable seats? You'd better believe it. But here's the kicker. These seats might feel plush at first, but as you cruise down the road, you'll quickly realize they can't hold a candle to the supportive seats found in earlier models. It's like Cadillac decided to trade comfort for a softer ride. And let's not forget the full-length console with an integrated armrest and storage compartment, perfect for stashing away your regrets about buying this car. It also boasts a tilt telescopic steering column, which is great if you're trying to find the right position to avoid the inevitable cramps from sitting in a car that's just too big. So what about the tech? You get an AM/FM radio with an option for an 8-track player, which is essentially your time machine back to the 70s. But don't expect the sound to be anything other than mediocre. This isn't a concert hall. It's a rolling time capsule. If you're thinking about making this your daily driver, be prepared for the quirks. The interior wiring can be a nightmare, especially if you enjoy having functional power windows in headlights. The complex front-wheel drive system isn't just a talking point, it's a potential money pit. In short, the interior of the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado is a mixed bag. It's got that vintage flair and a certain brutish charm, but it's also a reminder of how far we've come in terms of automotive ergonomics. Would I buy one? Maybe if I could get it for a steal and I had a good mechanic on speed dial. But would you take a chance on this nostalgia trip? All right, folks, it's time to dig into the heart of the beast, the engine of the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado. Now, this isn't just any ordinary engine. It's a 500 cubic inch displacement monster that, on paper, sounds impressive. But hold on to your hats because the reality is a bit more sobering. We've got ourselves a classic case of the malaise era, and the numbers definitely reflect that decline. Let's break it down. This engine is rated at a meager 400 gross horsepower at 4,400 revolutions per minute. Now, I know what you're thinking. 400 horsepower sounds great, but let me hit you with a dose of cold, hard reality. When you consider that the net horsepower is estimated around 350, it's pretty pathetic, especially when you think about what cars were capable of just a few years earlier. Now let's talk torque, because that's where the real power should be, right? This beast churns out 550 pound-feet at 3,000 revolutions per minute, and while that number is impressive, you have to wonder how much of that power is actually usable. With a front-wheel drive layout, the Eldorado's weight distribution can make the ride feel a bit more like a boat than a sports car. You want to feel that torque pushing you back in your seat, but instead, you might find yourself wondering if you left the brakes on. Now, let's not forget the transmission because the Turbo Hydromatic 400, arguably the best automatic transmission ever built, was replaced by the TH 425 in this model. Why would they downgrade from something that was practically bulletproof? It's like trading in a heavyweight champion for a featherweight wannabe. The TH 425 can't hold a candle to its predecessor, and if you ask me, that's a significant compromise. So, what does this all mean for the driving experience? You might be expecting a luxurious glide down the highway, and for a moment, you might get it. But you'll quickly realize that the thrill is dulled by a heavy, lumbering chassis and a lack of the precise handling that cars from the mid-60s to early 70s were known for. You see, the Eldorado's engineering choices are a mixed bag, and that can be frustrating for someone looking for a classic car that delivers on both style and performance. In summary, while the engine specs might look good on paper, the reality is a far cry from the high-compression V8 glory days. If you're chasing raw power and performance, you might want to keep looking. The Eldorado's engine might just leave you longing for the days when horsepower truly meant something. Now, we absolutely have to address the mechanics of the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado, and let me tell you, this is where the car takes a turn for the bizarre. First off, the transmission. This is where the legend lives. The Turbo Hydromatic 400, or THM 400, is arguably the best automatic transmission ever built. It's robust, it's reliable, and it's got a reputation that can't be shaken. You want smooth shifts and power transfer? This transmission delivers like a freight train. Forget the pathetic Ford C6 or the weak, laughable THM 200 that barely gets out of its own way. The Turbo Hydromatic 400 is a sacred cow in the automotive world, and it deserves every bit of praise it gets. But hold on, because the Eldorado's version is a bit of a mixed bag. The THM 400 is paired with a transverse-mounted design, which is a departure from traditional layouts. That's a bold move, but it's not without its quirks. You see, the front-wheel drive layout of the Eldorado was unique for its time, and while it offered some advantages in terms of space and handling, it created a whole new set of headaches for the average mechanic. The complexity of this system means that maintenance can be a real nightmare, especially when it comes to the constant velocity joints in the transaxle. Now let's talk about the rear axle. With a final drive ratio of 2.73 to 1, you'd expect this car to be a torque monster, but don't hold your breath. The sheer size of the Eldorado, combined with that low ratio, means it's not exactly a sprinter. Sure, it can lumber from 0 to 60 miles per hour in a respectable 8.1 seconds, but the quarter-mile time of about 16 seconds is nothing to write home about. You're not winning any races here, you're just enjoying a luxurious glide down the boulevard. And while we're at it, let's not ignore the rust issues that plague the Eldorado. Common spots like the wheel arches and trunk floor can be a deal-breaker. If you're considering one of these beasts, just know that you'll be fighting against the elements before you even get behind the wheel. The wiring for the power windows? A disaster waiting to happen. Electrical issues are about as common as the Eldorado's charming yet impractical quirks. So what do you think? Does the transmission and rear axle make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, or are you starting to see the cracks in this luxury facade? The mechanics might be a mixed bag, but they sure do tell an entertaining story. The suspension on the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado is where the facade of luxury really starts to crumble. Sure, it has that bold front-wheel drive layout that was unique back in the day, but let's be real. This design choice is a double-edged sword. It was supposed to deliver a smooth ride, but in practice, it feels more like a boat on rough seas than a luxury coupe gliding down the highway. The front suspension employs a McPherson strut setup, which sounds fancy until you realize it doesn't do much to mask the sheer bulk of this car. When you hit a bump, the Eldorado can make you feel every ounce of that 3,800-pound behemoth. Now, about those brakes, don't get me started. You've got a car that weighs almost 2 tons. And what do they give you? A mediocre setup that struggles to rein in all that mass. The brakes are just not up to par with what you'd expect from a Cadillac. You've got drums in the rear and discs in the front, but they lack the bite you'd want in a powerful luxury vehicle. My biggest issue has always been the brakes. They feel soft and disconnected, which is downright dangerous when you're barreling down the road. And what about handling? Well, if you thought the suspension was a letdown, the handling is even worse. The steering offers a vague, lifeless feel that completely isolates you from the road. You can't help but wonder, am I driving this car, or is it just floating along? Cars from the mid-60s to early 70s handled much, much better, and the Eldorado feels like it's stuck in a time warp, failing to keep up with even its contemporaries. You want a spirited drive? Forget it. This thing takes corners like a lumbering whale. To top it all off, the complex front-wheel drive system can lead to issues down the line, especially with the CV joints and transaxle. You'll be spending more time under the hood than behind the wheel if you're not careful. So, if you're thinking about picking one up, remember that the suspension, brakes, and handling are all glaring weaknesses. You're not just buying a piece of automotive history, you're potentially buying a headache. For me, a car that can't handle its weight is an immediate no, game over. What do you think? Would you risk it? When we talk about reliability, the 1970 Cadillac Eldorado is a mixed bag of tricks. It's got that classic Cadillac appeal, but let's be honest, it's not without its fair share of headaches. The electrical wiring issues, particularly in the power windows and headlight circuits, can turn a simple drive into a frustrating ordeal. And don't even get me started on the rust problems. Those notorious wheel arches, trunk floors, and lower door panels are practically begging to be inspected for rot. If you find one of these beauties, you better hope it hasn't been left in a damp garage for years, because rust is a killer and it can turn a majestic beast into a sad shell of its former self. Now here's my verdict. The 1970 Cadillac Eldorado is a glorious piece of heavy iron that encapsulates a bygone era of American luxury. It has character, it has style, and yes, it has a brutal charm that can't be denied. But it's also a commitment. You're not just buying a car. You're signing up for a relationship filled with quirks, potential breakdowns, and a need for constant love and attention. If you're not ready to do some serious maintenance work, this might not be the classic car for you. But here's the kicker. If you manage to find one in good condition for a reasonable price, say one that hasn't been butchered by some half-hearted restoration or has avoided the rust monster, I'd say go for it. Despite its flaws, this car embodies the last great year of high-compression V8s before the malaise era really kicked in. It's a statement piece, a conversation starter, and let's face it, a real head-turner. So, would I spend my money on this? If the car is original and in decent shape, absolutely. Just remember, it's only original once, and if you can snag one with low mileage and good provenance, you might just find yourself sitting on a classic that appreciates in value while providing you with an unapologetic driving experience. So keep your eyes peeled and good luck out there. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give it a like. Leave your comments and impressions. Your opinion is very important to me. Until next time.